Hey babes, I'm Marisa, and this is Balance in Bloom, a safe space where we connect with Black women and celebrate how they are balancing life's demands while blooming into their full potential. Today, I am excited to chat with Lissa Monet. She is an award winning DJ who has been lighting up dance floors across the globe for the past 15 plus years. From curating the vibe at Beyonce's VIP tour events to creating Toronto's legendary That Slow Jam party, if you know, you know. Lissa knows how to create unforgettable moments. I know I'm interested in finding out how she does it all. And if you are too, let's get into it. Hey Lissa, I'm good. How are
Good.
you?
Good. Back in Toronto, ready to see what summer has in store.
Do we even have a summer? Because what is the weather right now?
Well, yes, I mean, this is like typical Toronto weather. This is, it gives you a little bit of a, teaser, and then it brings winter back, and then it says, maybe I'll do it, and then it just comes out with like 21-degree weather, and then we're all happy again. So, you know.
So funny.
I know. I've
I
lived here
feel
my
like
whole life
it's
and this is just normal, but everybody acts like this is something new that happens every year. This happens all the time, every year.
I feel like we just want to forget that this happens every
Yes,
year at this
fair.
point. I've been here for 6 years now, and I'm going to be honest, this is the first time it's felt like a UK situation.
Oh,
Like, I
really?
felt like I'm in London. Constant grey, constant cloud, and then a
Mm.
random piece of sunshine. But anyway,
We gotta push through it.
we have to push through it. And I'm going to get to step in with these questions. So, the first one I have for you is how do you stay grounded when you are living such a fast paced and international lifestyle?
Hmm. Interesting that you should perceive it that way because I don't feel like that. In the last, I want to say 5 years, especially since the pandemic, I have slowed down tremendously. I want to say 15 years ago, I used to lead this no days off lifestyle. You got to grind, 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 and you got to always be doing something. And if you're sitting around not doing anything, then you're not doing anything productive. And,
Mm-hmm.
I realized that that leads to stress. It leads to, high blood pressure, and you find yourself being busy doing a lot of nothing, right? So, in the last maybe
Mm-hmm.
like 5, 6 years, I've just slowed down kind of by force, obviously, with the pandemic in 2020.
Yep.
I just decided with stress levels being so high in the pandemic, I decided I couldn't stay in Toronto, especially during the winter, as we just spoke about. We all know how brutal our winters
Mm-hmm.
are, especially being a creative
Mm-hmm.
and not working that whole summer. I just knew winter was going to
Yeah.
be like, crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'd probably have to check myself into Cam H. I know I say that as a joke, but like, I
Oh.
knew I would have lost my mind. So I just picked up
Mm.
and, you know, I don't want to say moved initially, but I picked up and I went to Ghana. The flight was cheap. I had friends there and I just picked up and left solely because it was warmer in temperature for no other reason.
Mm.
And then it just ended up
That is
being
so
like,
interesting.
yeah, and then it just ended up being like the most amazing 2, 3 years of my entire life. Very eye-opening. It taught me to slow down. Although it's a fast-paced city, it's a city that teaches you patience. So in that, it was like,
Mm.
I had to slow down. I had to
Yeah.
manually lower my blood pressure. And in that, I started doing yoga, I started doing meditation, and I started eating more healthy. So to answer your question, that's kind of how I migrated from a fast-paced jet set life to, you know,
Mm-hmm.
a slower paced life because I think my body was just ready and my mind was just ready for it.
Do you think that if you hadn't been living the life you had for the 15 years prior, that you would have felt you were at a high enough level, should I call it, to actually take that time and go to Ghana?
Probably not.
Do you feel like you'd reached a oh, okay.
Probably not.
Okay, that's
The
fair.
opportunity, everything just lined up the way that it was supposed to. I've always had
Mm-hmm.
friends that had suggested that I go to Ghana specifically for December, and every time I would check flights, it was like
Yes.
ridiculous. Like it was like
Crazy.
$2,000, $3,000,
Mm-hmm.
and at the time I just didn't feel. the need to spend that type of money to
That was
fly.
justified.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think everything just lined up. And then once I was there for a month. Initially, I was only going to stay there for 2 months. And, I was there for a month and my flight back got canceled. And so I was just like, well, I guess I'll just stay until flights open up again. And then the whole hotel quarantine thing happened. And I'm like, I'm not going back home for that. And it just kept happening.
Mm-mm.
And the universe allowed me to stay there. I was able to sustain myself financially. And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
everything just happened the way that it happened.
That's amazing. One more question on Ghana. Why Ghana and not somewhere else?
Well, my family, as I don't know if a lot of people know, but my family's from Trinidad and Tobago. I would have gone there, but the borders were
Hmm.
closed.
Oh, see, that was
Yeah.
literally what I was thinking. I was like, why didn't she go back to Trinidad and Tobago?
Yeah. I
Okay,
would have
that's fair
totally gone,
enough.
yeah,
That's
I would have
fair
totally
enough.
gone back there. Obviously, family's there, but it was just one of those things where I couldn't go there. And then I just didn't feel like picking up and going to a completely different island or country.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so, like I said, it
Yeah.
just so happened that I had a friend from the UK move his whole family there.
Mm-hmm.
And in conversation, he was like, just come, just come. Everything's open. So I was like, okay,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And I
Mhm.
love that everything lined up in that way for you.
Yeah.
Do you have any rituals and routines that you maybe learned over there, or maybe even prior to moving over there, that you employ when you are needing to align yourself?
Um, just rely on myself. Like no rituals really.
Mm,
It's just one of those things where it's like, I know my value and I know my worth and I know what I'm capable of. And I know that if somebody asks me to do something, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And I'm going to do it as if, you know, I'm going to do it as if it was my work, if that makes any sense.
it does.
So yeah, like for me, there's no really ritual. I think it's just embedded in me that if you're gonna do work, do good work.
Yeah, because you care about what your name is attached to, as we all should.
That too.
I know you mentioned that you're not really moving at the pace that you were previously, but after, say, a high energy gig or a long travel day, how do you go about protecting your peace? I know a lot of people are throwing around that phrase, protect your peace,
Yeah,
but how do you go about doing so?
I sleep. I'm a, I think I'm one of those introverted extroverts where it's like I like being around people for a certain amount of time, and
Yeah.
then after that, the tank gets to about three-quarters empty, and then it's like, okay, time to go or time to. I don't overstay my welcome in those spaces just simply because I know that I
Hmm.
wouldn't be the best person to hang around.
Hmm. No, I get it. I am nodding my head
Yeah,
ferociously
so
because
it's
I'm like, yes, my
yeah.
battery gets drained as well.
Yeah, and and if people's tanks are at whatever 100 and you're at E, it doesn't make for a good environment. So I just remove myself. I usually like to listen
Hmm.
to music that's not in the clubs, so things that are a little bit more chill,
Hmm.
R&B, you know, just like lo-fi stuff like that, like,
Yeah.
you know, just to kind of like even things out. Although, however, I've
Hmm.
been
Hmm.
listening to soca nonstop for the past 2 years, I feel
I love it. I've been listening to, I hate to say it, especially as I'm from Trinidad and Tobago as well, but I did not
like. I love
love
it.
soca. I didn't.
That's
I didn't
fair.
love soca for a long
That's
time.
fair.
But I have reintroduced myself. And if I look at my Spotify on repeat right now,
Hmm.
every single
Listen,
song,
the
I'm
one
like, Marisa, who are
the
you?
one thing about soca is that you'll always come back home. I had that moment too, like, when I was in
Hmm.
like high school, I stopped listening to soca. It wasn't what my friends in high school were listening to. They were into like, hip hop and R&B and, Puff
Yeah,
Daddy and stuff like that.
not
So,
Puff Daddy.
well, I mean, that's what we were listening to at the time. So, and
Fair.
soca was never a part of my, although I grew up in it and, I played steel pan and stuff, there was just a moment where,
Wow.
I just kind of stopped listening to it. And, I
Hmm.
think it just brings you back. It's just, especially if you're from there, it's like there's no denying it. You have to, you have to
Hmm.
listen to it at some point in your life.
At some point, I was always like, oh, I like dance hall more. I love Afro beats more.
Hmm.
But I don't know what it is. Recently, I've just gone to 10 on the Soca. I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, girls, catch me outside in
Well,
February
I mean, when you think about
in
it,
Trinidad.
soca is like it's probably the most unproblematic, give or take, genre. You know what I mean? And the premise behind
Mm-hmm.
it isn't, it's not it there's no harm to it. You know, we do say our things and we do say things that might be provocative, but there
Mm-hmm.
really is no harm to it. At the end of the day, we all know it's really about an opportunity to just kind of like be free, let loose, and just be happy. Like I don't know anybody who listens to soca
Mm-hmm.
and says, "Oh, it puts me in a bad mood." You know what I mean? So it's just
Right?
like
Yeah.
I will forever, be grateful, growing up West Indian and growing up listening to soca because it saved it saved me a
Mm-hmm.
time or two
Mm-hmm.
in the mood
Mm-hmm.
department.
Man, you said you played the steel pan. That has been
Hmm.
something I've always wanted to do. From a child, I wanted to do that, and I don't know why I didn't. And sometime last year, I can't remember where I was, but I saw some people playing, and it's just, oh my gosh, it just reminds me of the beach. It reminds me of my family. It just reminds me of all of the good things, and I just love that. So I need to find somewhere to
Yeah, I
get
mean,
involved.
there's so
Cause,
many in Toronto, like, after obviously after
mm-hmm.
this chat, I'll like, I'll fill you in, but like there's Panatics, Pan
I appreciate you.
Fantasy, Afro Pan, like there's so many bands in Toronto. And that's the other thing about living here too, is
Wow.
that like, we're so rooted in culture here, like you don't have to go to Trinidad to play or to learn. Like you could do it right here in
Mm-hmm.
the city, which is
Mm-hmm.
completely awesome.
I agree with you. And a question on success, I kind of spoke to it a little bit when I asked about if you hadn't had 15 years in the game at that point. Has your definition of success or how you balance your time and your life, to be honest, changed over time?
Oh, it changes all the time. We're all ever changing people. What I thought
Hmm.
was success a year ago doesn't mean the same thing to me now. Like, success
Hmm.
15 years ago to me was, I don't know, being on the road with Rihanna as a DJ or something.
Hmm.
Now I
Hmm.
just want peace in my life. Like, I don't,
That part.
yeah, I don't want the hustle and bustle. And it's like, and it's cool if someone's idea of success is consistent and the same throughout, the years,
Hmm.
and that's fine. You know what you want and you're laser focused on that. For me, it changes all the
Hmm.
time. Like right now,
Hmm.
especially since the pandemic, success is like just getting through the week without,
Mm.
strangling somebody.
You're funny. What keeps you connected to your purpose after all of these years?
I think working with people with good intentions, working with people who are
Mm.
genuine, and knowing that there are still people out there who have the same frame of mind and same focus and who want the same things that you do.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think
Hmm.
that's what keeps me grounded. I work with a really great group of people, and I think once you find your tribe, you stick with them, you nourish that and you pour into that, and you'll never not enjoy what it is that you do, to be honest.
Hmm. Community is very important
Yes.
for
And it's
sure.
very challenging to
S-
acquire that now, especially in this day, because we're just being pulled in so many different directions. And I feel like social media does not help with, community as much as we're on social media every day and it's a part of our daily lives. I don't think true community is
Mhm.
built, behind an app. You have to like,
I feel like, yeah,
you know,
yeah, I feel like the intention is for
yeah.
it to be a community builder, but whether the execution aligns with that is another question. I feel like I was having this conversation the other day. Social media has done a lot more dividing than it probably intended to,
Yeah.
and allowed people to, I don't know, hide behind facades and not actually know how to show up in real life.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I feel like what you were getting at there was like in real life, face-to-face
Face-to-face
connections are what
connection.
is
Yeah.
important.
And I mean, I
Yeah.
I get it. It's hard even now because like I said, we're pulled in different directions. Our attention spans are a lot shorter. So, you
Hmm.
wanting to connect with someone may not take like I don't know, for me it's like that's kind of how I built my network back in the day when I first started was like actually going out and meeting people and going to events and stuff like that. And now it's like I have to like muster all the energy I have to do that. I don't know if it's because of age or just that there's just so many things
Mm,
happening that it's like, it just seems like a lot of work, to build that connection. I don't want to blame
mm-hmm.
it all on social media, but I think it's just times have just changed and,
Yeah.
I think people have taken on a lot more that they can chew and, it's hard to,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to put all the things together.
It's hard to compartmentalize sometimes when
Hmm.
everything seems so just intertwined, I
Yeah,
guess if that's the right word to use.
absolutely.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I experienced that. Earlier on today, I was just saying like, I just need a minute because my brain was about to explode. I was like, there's so much information, so many things are happening. The tabs that are on my screen right now is a joke.
Um,
Like, it's just there's a lot going on.
you want to have a competition? We can count them right now.
You get it. You absolutely get
As
it.
I'm looking at them,
Oh
I'm like, oh
Lord.
my God. It's embarrassing.
Right? Why are we like this? Why are we like
To
this?
me, an extension of my brain. So it's like if I close it, that's it. It's gone. It's out of my memory bank.
It's gone.
So it has to stay up. Or else.
No, I do you know what? Again, I relate to you because I have things on here that I know have been open for at least a month.
Mhm.
Because I've said, yeah, I'm gonna get back to it. I'm gonna get back to it.
Yep,
I'm not getting back to
I
it
know.
until next month.
I know.
Let's
And
just be
then
real.
sometimes I just get fed
Let's
up and
just
I
be
just
real.
close the tab and I'm like, eh.
I get it so well. So I'm going to ask some questions about creative vision and legacy. You've curated parties that are not just about the music, but about the vibe, the intention, the experience. How do you stay inspired creatively?
I stay inspired out of the need to fill a void, I think. There's a lot of voids,
Mm.
especially in the city, that need to be filled. And one of them is, for me in particular, the slow jam party, to me was a void that really needed to be filled. When I used
Mm-hmm.
to DJ, I would always end my sets with slow jams just simply because there was a time where I DJ'd a club. I had a residency for like 3 years, and it was a very hip hop heavy club, a lot of trap music,
Mm-hmm.
which was like super
Mm-hmm.
popular I mean, at the time. I guess trap music is popular now. I don't know. And
Mm-hmm.
with that came a lot of energy, bottle popping,
Yeah.
people on couches, bravado, all that stuff. And I would
Yeah.
always play slow jams at the end of the night just to kind of mellow everyone out and to kind of get everybody out the
Let's all calm
door.
down.
Yeah, and to get everyone out
Yeah.
the door too, because it was like if I kept playing trap all night, people would just stay and buy bottles and like the party would just continue. And it's like, I want to go home. It's three
Mm-hmm.
o'clock. So I would play slow jams. And it got to the point where you would see the change in like energy, you'd see guys
Yeah.
talking to girls, you'd see things happening in the corners and stuff
Mm.
like that. And it was like, okay, cool. Like people still enjoy R&B and they still enjoy this type of music. And it just really helped to just
Mm-hmm.
kind of calm people down. And
Yeah.
it's crazy because the club owner used to actually noticed it and said to me one day, like, Lissa, I love what you do at the end of the night because, we have other nights that are similar and our bouncers have to work overtime just trying to like prevent fights from happening and stuff like that. So he's like, I
Mm-hmm.
remember him
Mm-hmm.
telling me that specifically. And, for me, it's like, yes, that's my intention, but at the same time, I'm an R&B lover from day one. And it's like, I just want to hear R&B
Mm-hmm.
music on big speakers. And that's kind of how that slow jam party started. It was kind of a selfish thing. It was like, I just want to
That's
hear
so
slow jams
interesting.
on big speakers in the club.
Yeah.
And, I have friends that love slow jams too. And it was just one of those things where we started in the basement of Revival. Our first party had, I don't know, 60 people. And it just
Mm-hmm.
kind of grew from there. And, the love of R&B, I think is a thing in Toronto, but slow jams was a thing. Like we had no idea slow
Mm-hmm.
jams was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, now it's kind of grown. It's kind of the intention has changed where it's like, our party is more community based. We like to
Mm-hmm.
encourage things like giving back to the community. In December, we do gift card drives for shelters and stuff like
Oh.
that. We really
Oh.
try to, and we should do this a little bit more, encourage and speak more about HIV, AIDS, and STD in the Black community, stuff like that, just simply because the
Mhm.
music
Mhm.
is tied with all of those things. And, we just want to encourage like love and Black love and, just having
Mhm.
people come out, especially whether it's couples, whether it's single people celebrating single
Mhm.
life or celebrating
Mhm.
a newly ended relationship, or couples who just met and
Mhm.
just want to have a safe space, enjoy
Mhm.
themselves without feeling judged or without being looked at like, oh, let that couple over there get a room. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of like the environment that we want to create and that we have been creating with our parties.
I've been to several and I've had a wonderful time.
Aw,
And I've been there single, I've been there when I've been in a
relationship.
relationship. I've
See,
done both. I'm just like I had fun each
I
time.
love
It was
that.
a vibe.
And I love
Yes.
that. I
So
love that you still came even when you weren't in a relationship and you came when you were single.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes. And it really like I don't think you're saying what you're saying just for speaking's sake. It really didn't make a difference how much I enjoyed myself,
Mhm.
regardless of how I showed up. So guys, pull up. There is an event coming up. I
Yes,
saw
there is.
in
May,
May
sorry, November, May 18th. Yes, the long
18th, I
weekend. Yeah,
think.
the
Yeah.
long weekend Sunday. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Grab your tickets,
it's our
guys.
cozy pajama slash lingerie party. So that's always like a favorite for our
Mm-hmm.
patrons. And we're looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
Yes, so am I, so am I. So, another question about legacy now. When you think of your legacy beyond DJing, what do you hope people remember you for?
I just want to be someone who led by example, never do
Mm-hmm.
anything that I would be ashamed of. I kind of just do things with integrity. And I always say to myself, what do I say to myself? I always say to myself, do the things even though people aren't looking, do the work.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
work still has to get done whether people are looking or not, or whether people are paying
Mm-hmm.
attention or not. And be fair and don't be afraid to speak up. And if you see something happening that's not fair, speak up. Like there's nothing wrong with speaking up and voicing your opinion and having a conversation to figure out how we can make a situation better. So I guess that's kind of how
Mm.
I want to be remembered, as the person who wasn't afraid to say how they felt
Speak
about
your
a
mind.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you feel like early on in your career you had that same, not temperament, but that same kind of perspective? Were you happy to speak up if you saw something that was not really how it should be, or did that come
Yeah, that definitely came with
with
like
age?
time. Yeah, time and age. I
Mm-hmm.
remember back in the day, they used to have these DJ awards called Stylists. And I remember my first
Mm-hmm.
Stylist DJ awards, I was doing an interview and somebody had asked me a question about the objectification of women in music and, as a female DJ,
Mm-hmm.
how I felt about playing music that was you know, derogatory to women. And I gave some bullshit
Yeah.
answer. I was like, I can't remember what I said, but I was like, if you like it, I love it. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to ruffle any feathers. I was just kind of like, I played it safe because,
Yeah.
I was very new in this like male dominated industry. And I guess I just didn't want to come off as like, I think at the time too, I didn't see it as like, well, they're not referring to me as a bitch or a hoe or whatever. Like, that's not me.
Mm-hmm.
So, I
Mm-hmm.
kind of didn't
Mm-hmm.
really, but, obviously, as you get older and the more you listen to certain types of music and you hear that language, you're just like, doesn't sit well with me. I'm not really feeling this. And, my views of hip
Mm-hmm.
hop in that vein have changed now. I understand
Mm.
different levels to it. And I understand that, all the things like product of environment, all that
Yeah.
stuff. But to me, it's just like, I feel like that's why Soca wins, man, because, you don't,
Right?
you
You
don't have
don't
to,
have to think about
you
all
don't have
of
to think
that.
about all those things. So yeah, like, yeah. So to answer your question, yeah, my thought process has definitely shifted and changed from the time that I started till now. Obviously, when
Mhm.
you become more confident in the things that you do, and obviously think about, I do a lot of thinking. I do a lot of analyzing. I look at what other people are doing and, you know, just kind of see where the wins are and where the misses were
Mhm.
and just kind of like, okay, like in this scenario, if I was ever in that scenario, maybe I could have done this differently, or maybe I could have done that differently. And I just kind of think through
Mhm.
things. But
Mhm.
instead of, you know, looking at it like oh, that's wrong, it's like I try to see all aspects of a situation
Mm.
because, nothing's ever black and white. There's always three sides to a story.
No.
You kind of have to, for
Yep.
me, my answers for things, it's like it all depends. It all depends because there's so many different
Mhm.
factors that can like change the trajectory of anything. So, when
Yeah.
somebody asks me, oh, do you think we'll sell out? And I'm like, it all depends. A comet storm could hit.
No, but truly,
Yeah, it really just all depends.
what's something people don't see about what it takes to do what you do?
What I just spoke about, just the like, the
The nuances.
overthinking and the nuances and the overthinking and the analyzing and thinking about different scenarios and thinking about what ifs and, should we do this? Is this an ego decision or is this a decision for the best interest of the party? Things like that. A lot of people think that throwing a party is just like, oh, you find a venue and you get a DJ or you get a few DJs and you grab all of your friends together and they all, buy tickets and they show up. But, you have to think about, I'll give you an example. During the pandemic, when we had opened up again, we were deciding whether we should start doing our parties. And it was like, well, what's the price point that we should, you know, sit at
Mhm.
now? And a lot of us in the group talked about, well, we've really been underpricing ourselves as a collective in the city when
Mm.
it comes to throwing parties. Like when you think about, parties that are happening south of the border or, in other
Mhm.
parts of the world, their price points are significantly different than the price
Yeah.
points in Toronto. And it's like, for the quality of DJs we produce here in Toronto, the price point should be significantly higher. And then you see examples of
Mhm.
like other parties that are produced here in Toronto and they're pricing their parties at, I don't know, let's say for example, 50, $60. And that's just like early bird.
Mhm.
And it's like in order for us
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
yeah, in order for us to do cool things, not necessarily put money in our pockets, but to do cool things for our
Mhm.
patrons, we have to charge a little bit more. If you want decor, we
Yep.
have to charge. If you want food and bev, we have to charge. If you want, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know, Beyonce to come and DJ, we have to charge. So it's one of those things
Yeah.
where it's like, we really fought about keeping our prices fair. And it was a lengthy discussion, right? And we thought
I
about,
bet.
yeah, we thought about the good, we thought about the bad, we thought about the ugly, we came up with all sorts of scenarios. What about people who need to get babysitters and blah 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 and da, da, da. Like we thought about everything. And those are the
Yeah.
things that like I think people who, are patrons who just purchase tickets and come and enjoy our parties don't think about. It's like,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of thought that we
So much.
particularly put into like, you know, making sure that you guys have like the best experience.
Again, I'm like nodding my head crazily because, as well as balancing Bloom, I have Babe Seeking Balance, which is where I host events every month for Black
Hmm.
women in the city. And I recently had a comment saying, "You're charging $60 just for this? At least if you were doing X, Y, and Z, then da 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 da." And I'm like, ma'am, of course there was a part of me that wanted to erupt, but then I was like, okay, let me break it down for you then. Let me tell you what the costs
Hmm.
are. The venue, the person running the workshop, all of the materials that are going to be used in this workshop, the food, the drinks, and so on and so forth. Not to mention just the experience that you're getting. I am a one woman show and I pay everything from my own pocket.
Right.
And I barely, if ever, make anything from these events. So thankfully, so many people kind of just jumped to my rescue. Were like, if you'd been to one of her events, you would understand. She should probably be charging more. Blah, 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 blah. And that person deleted the comment, never to be seen again. I was like, hmm.
Well, yeah,
There is a lot.
it's it's tough because it's like it's a party, right? And you just see everybody having fun and having a good time and drinking. And I don't know, I think there's this sense, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like past situations that have happened with other event producers that have set this tone where it's like, well, you guys are just throwing parties and drinking tequila and like, having a good time. So it's not really that big a deal. Why do
Mm,
you want to charge $50 anyway? And it's like,
mm,
I always think about my friends south of the border. It's like I've got friends who produce parties and they're doing them at large, like a Coney Island with stage setup and
mm,
like,
mhm.
like pyrotechnics and you know what I mean? And like all of these things and like
All of the things.
thousands of people and free hot dogs and blah 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 and all and like
Hmm.
large like Connect Four and Jenga for people to play and like
Hmm.
all these super cool experiences. And I think about another promoter in Trinidad who throws these
Hmm.
crazy events during Carnival. And I see
Hmm.
him get backlash too because you see people in his comments saying, "Oh, why are the tickets $200?" But it's like when you go, you get a $200 experience. You know what I mean? It's
Experience.
not like you're paying $200 and you're getting a hot dog and a smile and like, you're getting like places to take photos, you're getting, free food and drink, you're getting like, a specialty
Hmm.
cup, you're getting decor and like and
Hmm.
once again, experience. So it's like, I think people just need to stop for a second. And obviously, there are event producers out there who will charge XYZ and you walk in and you get absolutely nothing. You don't
Yeah.
even get, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You've already spent, $20 on parking and $15 on gas. And, you go home and you're like, what the heck? Why did I leave my house? So I get that. I get that side of it
Correct.
too, right? So I think patrons just need to kind of like weigh out the pros and cons. It's your wallet, it's your bank account, it's your money. You are free to spend it where and when you want. It's up to you to decide what
Hmm.
makes the most sense for you financially. I'll always quote my mom, if you don't have money, stay home. Nobody is like
Facts.
nobody is forcing you to go and the parties will always be there. It's not like, if you don't go, you're
Hmm.
missing the last party on the face of the earth. Like
There's no shortage.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
exactly, especially in this city, there's no shortage. So it's like, if you just don't have it right now, that's cool. And no one's going to make you
That's
feel bad
fine.
about it, and nobody's going to,
Hmm.
force your hand. You just can't do
Hmm.
it at the moment, and that's fine.
That's it. That's it. You spoke about filling a void in the city with some of the events, specifically that slow jam party. What do you think is still missing from the music or event industry when it comes to creating safe and equitable spaces for Black women?
Mm, infrastructure. I mean,
Yeah.
I worked in the music industry here in Toronto for a really long time, and it's like we just don't have a sustainable infrastructure. I want to say 15 years ago, we had a better infrastructure back
Hmm.
then than we do now. Like, um,
Oh.
artists used to be able to do shows and perform and get their feet wet on stage. I don't even think that happens as much anymore. Like now, I
Mm,
see shows here and there, but it's not enough, I feel like, for an artist who's trying to break in their own city to get the experience that they need to like go to a different city and perform or go to
mm-hmm.
another country and perform. Some of them actually skip our city completely and go to a different city because there's more
Okay.
opportunity to perform or to get shows and to get paid to do those shows.
Mm,
You know what I mean? So,
mm,
mind you, I have been out of the music industry for a very long time too. So I not quite sure what's happening right now, but from the outside looking in, it
mm-hmm,
just seems like there aren't a lot of shows in the infrastructure. What I do love is that more women are banding together and,
mm,
whether they're collaborating or whether they're just, using each other as resources. I think that's really dope because back then we didn't really have a lot of us. So now that there's more of us,
yeah.
I feel like, you know, maybe there is an infrastructure that can be created. But yeah, like I just don't feel there's enough opportunity to create safe spaces. And I just don't feel like we should be creating our own. I mean, we should be creating our own safe spaces, but it's a lot,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's a lot to
Yeah.
create your own safe space when there's a whole industry with millions and millions of dollars that can create those spaces for us.
Mm-hmm. And outside of Black History Month,
Yes,
how about we
outside,
just do
right.
it all year round?
Outside
How
of
about
Black
that?
History Month, outside of Women's History Month, outside of let's just do it
Yeah.
year round. Let's stop the performative thing and like,
Thank you.
pour into the women who are putting in the work in the industry.
I agree with you. How do you create balance between community building and your own personal needs as an artist and entrepreneur?
I just listen to myself. I listen to, when
Mm-hmm.
my body says, chill out, you're doing too much, or when it says, you know what, I think you need to socialize and you need to get out there and like talk to people. It's really just, if I have,
Intuitive.
yeah, if I have it in me, I'll do it. If I don't, I won't.
Mm-hmm. And how does
Very
your body speak to
simple.
you? No, but I think it's great because I think a lot of people complicate it actually, and maybe we look for, I don't know, something else when we should actually be listening to our bodies. So for me, for instance, headaches are a really big thing, or I get this
Mm,
pressure in my head or at the back of my, like the nape of my neck. I used to ignore it and just kind of push through it. And maybe it's a privilege to be able to just stop and listen to our bodies, but
right.
there are some telltale signs when your body's talking to you. So, what are some of those for you?
I think like tightness in the chest. That sounds really bad. Like I should go see
Mm,
a doctor or something. But it's like, when your chest feels heavy or like
I get it.
you just literally don't feel like doing anything. Like you just don't,
Mm-hmm.
you can't find the energy to get up and, run a comb
Mm-hmm.
through your head and leave the house.
Mm-hmm.
So like for me, it's just like, why force it? Because I know if I force it,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing it out of my own free will. I'll be doing it because I'm forcing it. And then now I'm outside and then I'm mad at myself because I'm out here when I should be in my
And
bed.
then we're catching strays, and it's
Exactly.
like, what's going on? I get
Exactly.
it. I
Yeah,
get
I'm
it.
j- I'm not just doing this for me. I'm doing this for everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Would you say you spend a lot of time alone?
Yes, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love
I am
my
the same.
own company.
I reposted something the other day that said something like, my favorite energy is my own energy. And it was just this woman by herself living her best life because honestly, it's like that sometimes. But I do take your point about, okay, I need to socialize.
Yeah,
I need to actually get outside
yeah,
and see some folks.
yeah.
So I do
And it's
force
having
myself. There is a time I force myself, though,
absolutely.
to go to the gym
Yeah. Well, yeah, because that's your
and
that's
like
your
get
health.
outside and socialize.
Yeah. When it comes to like your health, I think you have to force yourself. And same thing, physical health, mental health. Your body will tell you, like, you haven't spoken to anybody in 28 days, girl. Like, go talk to somebody. Like, leave your house and have a conversation. You know what I mean? And,
Mm-hmm.
I think when it gets to the point where your body has stopped telling you that, but you kind of know that you haven't, is when, you should really take it serious. Because I'm
Yeah.
sure there's instances in people's lives where they know they haven't spoken. I'm just throwing this number out there that they haven't spoken to a single soul in 28 days.
Mm-hmm.
They've gotten so comfortable with it that it's like, and
Yeah. It's the norm.
it's the
Yeah.
norm. But we all know that like that's not
That's
it's
not healthy.
it's not healthy. I was gonna say it's not normal, but like it's not healthy. I'm super grateful to have that inner, I guess you can say, voice that
Compass.
that checks me and says, girl, like, you need to get off
Get
social
it together.
media, or you need to go talk to somebody face to face, or you need to like go hang out with your friends, or you just need to be by yourself. You need to go drive somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really, really grateful for that ability to do that and to have that.
Mm-hmm.
And I ask
Mm-hmm.
everybody to find that in them. I think everybody has it in them. I think it's just, you just have to be more mindful and try to listen for
Yeah.
it. I know this all sounds so like, I,
Airy fairy.
yeah, but I don't know. Your body is your
It's
body.
not.
Yeah, you can't ignore. I had an instance, and I tell this story all the time because I'm still freaked out by it. But I had an instance
Mm.
where I was DJing heavy, maybe like 5 days a week.
Oh.
This was a week where it was one of those weeks, 5 days a week. And I had, towards the end of that week, I had a wedding. And, I was getting ready
Hmm.
to do the wedding, normal, normal. And I just remember being in my bathroom, getting ready, and then waking up and it's dark. I'm squinting and I'm seeing like the bottom of my toilet. So I'm on the floor.
Mm.
And it's
Damn.
like, yeah, I completely passed out. At the time, I was living by
Wow.
myself. Um, and I woke up and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm supposed to be at this wedding now." Obviously, my
Hmm.
phone's in my room. I get to my room and obviously my phone is blown up. And I reach
Yeah.
out to the wedding planner and I'm like, "I just passed out. I don't know how long I've been out. I will try to get a replacement DJ like right away, but this is the situation that I'm
Hmm.
in." And thankful enough, they had someone at the venue to just play music while I wasn't there, while they were
Oh, thank
freaking out
God.
trying to figure out where I was. But to
Hmm.
me, I think that was the wake up call. That was the like, yo, you gotta slow down. Like you gotta listen to yourself.
Hmm.
And it's like when I think back leading up to that moment, I was fighting a lot of things. I was
Hmm.
fighting sleep. I was trying to stay up to do things that I wasn't getting done because I was working so much. And,
Hmm.
when I finally got a chance to sit down and like think back, I was like, yo, you were really pushing yourself. And I still have my moments where I'm like, Lisa, you're pushing yourself. Like you're pushing yourself to the limit. Like it's ridiculous now. Like stop.
Hmm.
I tell this story because I don't ever want anybody to get to that point because that's
Mm.
scary. Because what if I had hit my head? What if I knocked myself out? What if
That's what I'm
I,
thinking.
you
Oh my
know,
gosh. There are
like
so many
so many
things that could have
things.
occurred.
Yeah, exactly. What if I didn't wake up again? You know what I mean? Like, so, I say that to say, like, really listen to yourself. Yourself will tell you
Hmm.
about yourself.
Listen, our bodies are. Who did I hear saying this the other day? They were basically comparing humans to AI. Someone who's freaking out a bit about AI, but it's like, listen, God created the most technological masterpiece within us,
Mhm.
okay? It's always speaking to us,
Yeah.
and we would do well to listen to it. And also, for anyone who thinks this is all airy fairy, I'm gonna need you to be so for real. This is this is real talk. Listen to your bodies, okay?
Push yourself and see what happens.
Listen, F around and find out.
Right,
How about
exactly.
that?
Exactly. Exactly.
I've got one final question for you.
Hmm.
What's one lesson you've learned about yourself through music that you don't think you'd have learned otherwise?
I fall in and out of love with it all the time, and that's okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't have to love
Yeah,
music. I don't love it
you
all the
don't.
time. I don't need to hear it all the time. I don't need to be around it all the time. Sometimes it annoys the hell out of me, like I, yeah, like there are times where I don't care to listen to anything new. I just want to sit in my 90s, or I have moments where I just want to listen to
Hmm.
all new music and I could care less
Hmm.
about the older stuff. So I just, I'm very like, I love it, but have to, I don't have to like it all the time, if that makes any
And
sense.
that's so normal. It does make sense. You can't. I don't know how to say it because you can love something, but you don't need to like all of it all the
All the
time,
time, yeah.
if that makes sense.
Just because I'm a DJ doesn't mean that, music is all of my life.
Oh, that just made me think of one question actually.
Mhm.
I don't know whether this is maybe another thing that you haven't thought about, but if you weren't a DJ, what do you think you'd be doing?
Hair.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you like messing around with hair?
I did for a really long time. I still toy with the idea, but I don't know. Once again, the stars have to align. Things just have to align. But I do remember, coming out of high school and trying to figure out what I wanted to do as far as like college and university.
Mhm.
And I remember telling my mom I want to go to hair school. And she was like, no, you're going to go to college. It was like, you're gonna go to college. You're gonna use up this tuition money I saved up my whole life for you to go, and you're gonna get a business administration degree, whatever, and then you'll be a hairdresser. And I went
Mm-hmm.
and I did I fast tracked. I did my 2 years, and I ended up being a DJ. So,
How did you feel about that?
um, it was just what was aligned for me at the time. When I was going to
Mm-hmm.
college, I was obviously out and about partying and stuff, and I,
Mm-hmm.
made friends with a lot of the DJs. And back then, DJs would hang out after the club at like 2, 3 in the morning and talk about what vinyl was coming out and who was releasing what single or what album or whatever. And,
Mm-hmm.
they talk about who produced this and who wrote for that. And I would be a part of those conversations. And, one DJ in
Mm-hmm.
particular was like, you know a lot about music. I'm going to teach you how to DJ. And I was like, okay. And
Oh,
yeah, and then I would just like go to his house, and he taught me how to DJ on vinyl. And then he's like, well, if you have to, like, you're really good, and if you want to keep this going, you got to buy your own set. So I saved up my money and I bought my own set, and I was like a basement DJ for a while. And I would go and every Tuesday down to like play the record downtown and buy my vinyl and buy all the singles and the 12 inches and the blah blah blahs. And I think about a year or two after that, same DJ called me back and he's like, I started a residency. You're going to open for me. I was like, what?
wow, he really
Yeah.
believed in you. I
Yeah.
love that.
So
Oh,
that's kind of how it came to be. Hair was not in the equation. I was doing my own hair, but I wasn't doing anybody else's hair. Like
yeah.
that just kind of went out the window, and
Mm-hmm.
that just kind of consumed my life.
Wow, what a
Yeah.
story. I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time. I
Well, thanks
really
for having
appreciate
me.
you. No worries. Please tell the folks where they can find you on the socials and if you have a website.
Yeah, sure. You can find me on all socials. Hey Lissa Monet, HeyLissa Monet, and lissamonet.com or thatslowjamparty.com. Yeah, that's where you can find me.
Amazing. Yay. Well, have a good one,
You
and
too.
I will definitely be hopefully seeing you at that party.
Yes, see you on May 18th.
All right. Bye.
Bye.